what surprises most people outside Germany is that it took the Germans a very long time to do this in different ways. It wasn't really until 1985, that is 40 years after the war, that a German head of state was willing to say, yes, the Germans suffered, but other people suffered more and it was our fault. And we are now calling May 8th, 1945, not a day of capitulation, but a day of liberation. That took 40 years. And in a certain sense, that's a kind of thing that gives other countries hope, because when they start pushing, when they start digging up trouble, the resistance will always be there. It's not a one-off deal. It's not the case that you can somehow inoculate people by showing them pictures or reading histories of the horror that a country has done and imagine that therefore it's over and done with, there won't be any nationalism, there won't be any racism. It's not that easy. It has to take place on a whole bunch of fronts. Changing the school plans is, of course, one thing, but even more importantly, I think public discussion in the arts, in literature, in film, all of those things are tremendously important. Iconography is important. The question of what kinds of public monuments we have, what kinds of public monuments we tear down, all of that is something that you cannot give a recipe for. It's quite local, and it's important that it not be imposed from the outside. And anybody comparing what it's like to live in Germany today in 2019, if they were there in 1982, as I was for the first time, can simply see it's a far better country for having gone through this process. People at this moment in time in the United States are very open to the idea that the United States has not faced up to that racist, shameful, criminal past. And because we haven't faced up to it, we had a tremendous backlash to the presidency of Barack Obama that produced Donald Trump. So the United States happily, the only happy thing about the United States at the moment is that this horrible racist presidency has produced a spate of popular history, popular concern with the pieces of our past, which were basically just a black hole, certainly to most white people in the United States. A virulent, unquestioning nationalism is a result of not actually facing up to the past. There's an enormous amount of hostility, certainly in the Soviet Union, or the former Soviet Union rather, to learning anything from the Germans, because the myth of we won the great patriotic war is the foundational myth in contemporary Russia, as it was in the Soviet Union. With that founding myth, it's very hard to even be open to the idea of learning something from the Germans, although Russian friends have told me that's beginning to open up a little bit. I think in other countries in Eastern Europe, you have a very different problem. The normal ways in which countries construct a national identity is either to appeal to national heroism or to appeal to a sense of national victimhood. There hasn't been a serious discussion of the ways in which, for example, many Eastern European countries were complicitous with the Nazi regime, or even part of the Axis, as in the case of Hungary. The past on a German model is a kind of just rejection of any of that process and a desperate grasping onto old national heroes, no matter how racist, nationalist, and gory they were, and to combine that with this sense of victimhood. I wouldn't be too hopeless, however, because it does seem to me that the time has been very short between 1989 and, I mean, we're talking 30 years. People are beginning to realize that, late stage capitalism is not quite the glory that people thought it would be in 1989. And my strong hope would be that a more careful look at, is there anything we can learn and take from that project? In particular, a sense of international solidarity, which, although it was abused, was quite genuine. So my hope is that that will become part of the next stage.